black sedan to the side of the road one rainy evening. He thought he was just helping a stranger in need. What he didn't know was that this one act of kindness would unravel secrets from his past, stir up old wounds, and challenge everything he believed about forgiveness, family, and love. Ethan had built his entire empire from nothing. Years ago, with little more than a borrowed laptop and a relentless dream, he co-founded a startup that would later revolutionize cybersecurity. But as success came, so did betrayal. His former partner and closest friend, Richard Hale, blindsided him by stealing investors, manipulating contracts, and nearly collapsing Ethan's company. The betrayal cost him millions and years of rebuilding. More than the money, it cost him trust. Ethan swore he would never let his guard down again. On this stormy night, though, he wasn't thinking about the past. He was thinking about his son, Noah, who had grown quiet and withdrawn since the passing of his mother 2 years earlier. Nothing seemed to bring light back into Noah's eyes anymore, and Ethan carried the guilt like a shadow. He was so consumed with running the company and keeping his son afloat that he never imagined one unexpected encounter could change everything. Through the sheets of rain, he saw them, a woman standing by a broken-down van, shielding 4 young girls beneath her arms. Their clothes were soaked, their hair plastered to their faces, but it was the look in their eyes that struck him most, fear mixed with quiet resilience. Ethan rolled down his window, hesitated for only a second, and then stepped out. "Do you need help?" he asked. The woman looked up, her face pale under the dim streetlight. "The van died. We don't really have anywhere to go." Her voice carried exhaustion, the kind that comes from too many battles fought alone. Without a second thought, Ethan offered them warmth, food, and a place to stay for the night. He told himself it was temporary, just a gesture of human decency. But when the girls curled up on the couches of his modern yet lonely house, when laughter echoed faintly through halls that had long been silent, Ethan felt something he hadn't in years: life. Over the days that followed, Noah bonded with the girls, especially the youngest, who insisted on sharing her crayons with him. For the first time since his mother's death, Noah laughed. It was small, fleeting, but Ethan noticed. He began to see how much healing could come from companionship, from the simple presence of others who carried their own scars. But then came the revelation, like a slow-burning fuse reaching its explosion. The woman's name was Claire. At first, Ethan only knew fragments. She had left a painful marriage, she had been struggling to keep her daughters safe, and she wanted nothing more than to give them a chance at a better life. But when Ethan finally pieced together her full story, his world shifted beneath him. Claire wasn't just any woman. She was the ex-wife of Richard Hale, his former partner, his rival, the man who nearly destroyed his career. The realization left Ethan reeling. Was this fate's cruel joke? The woman who brought laughter back into his home was tied to the man who had once stolen everything from him. His first instinct was to push her away, to protect himself and his son from being pulled back into Richard's orbit. But when he looked at Claire's daughters, when he saw the way they held onto each other, he knew this was not about business. This was about humanity. Yet the world has a way of finding cracks in even the strongest walls. News spread quickly. A CEO sheltering the ex-wife of his rival. The media pounced, painting the story as scandal, as revenge, as a twisted narrative of power and manipulation. Reporters camped outside Ethan's house, demanding statements. Board members whispered about reputational risks. Investors called in panic. Ethan stood at a crossroads. If he distanced himself from Claire, the noise would quiet. His company, his legacy, his carefully rebuilt empire would remain untarnished. But if he chose to stand beside her, he risked not only his fortune but also becoming the target of Richard's wrath once more. It was Noah who gave him the answer without even meaning to. One night, Ethan overheard his son whispering to Claire's youngest daughter, "Before you came, I didn't smile anymore. But now, I think my mom would be happy if she saw me laugh with you." Ethan realized then that this wasn't about rivals or business or even public opinion. It was about second chances, the chance for his son to heal, for Claire and her daughters to find safety, and maybe even for himself to open his heart again. But choosing what's right rarely comes without consequences. Richard returned into the picture, furious that Ethan had not only taken in his ex-wife but had become the father figure his daughters now looked up to. He accused Ethan of using Claire to humiliate him. He threatened lawsuits, leveraged media connections, and did everything he could to paint Ethan as a manipulator. Ethan could have fought back with equal aggression. He had the resources, the influence, the connections. But instead, he chose a different path, the harder one. He remained silent, allowing his actions to speak louder than words. He shielded Claire and the girls from the chaos, offering them not just a roof over their heads but dignity and peace. Slowly, the narrative began to change. What the media first saw as scandal turned into something unexpected, a story of compassion. Reporters who had once camped outside his house began telling a different story, the story of a man who opened his home not for profit, not for power, but for kindness. Public opinion shifted, and instead of criticism, Ethan began to receive letters from families, from children, from people who had been touched by the courage it takes to care when the world tells you to look away. Through it all, Ethan discovered that forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting the pain someone caused. It means choosing not to let that pain dictate your future. Richard's betrayal had shaped years of Ethan's life, but now, Ethan refused to let it define his legacy. His true legacy wasn't his company, or his wealth, or the empire he had built brick by brick. It was the lives he touched, the hearts he helped heal, and the love he allowed back into his own home. Claire, too, found her strength again. No longer the woman broken by years of fear and silence, she began to rebuild herself alongside Ethan. She found work, she enrolled her daughters in school, and she began to smile in ways that suggested freedom was no longer just a dream but a reality. As for Ethan and Claire, their bond grew not from romance at first but from shared resilience, from nights spent sitting at the kitchen table helping children with homework, from quiet moments where two wounded souls realized they were no longer alone. Love, when it finally arrived, was not fireworks or grand declarations. It was steady, patient, like rain soaking into dry earth. In the end, Ethan made peace with the past not by erasing it, but by proving that the future could be written differently. He didn't just save a woman and her children that night on the rainy road, he saved himself, his son, and perhaps even the belief that kindness still has the power to change lives. And maybe that's what makes this story more than just drama, more than just a clash between rivals. It's a reminder that the choices we make in the quiet moments, the choice to stop, to help, to love despite the risk, are the choices that shape who we truly are. So when the world asks what matters more, your pride, your wealth, your legacy, or the simple act of doing what's right, Ethan's answer will always remain the same: kindness, no matter the cost. Because sometimes, the family you choose out of compassion becomes the greatest victory of all.